So hello, as I mentioned, this is Putting First to Work for You. My name is Michelle Long. I'm the head of alumni relations at First Headquarters, and I have the privilege today of moderating our panel of esteemed sponsors, and we'll let them introduce themselves, beginning with Matthew.
CAD modeling and looking through requirements. We do a lot of documentation, but a lot of the stuff that I'm using nowadays was started initially with First, so I'm really happy to be here, and thank you for letting me join the panel.
Follow suit and stand up as well. I am Callie Eaton, and I work for Rockwell Collins. We're headquartered in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, so it is truly my privilege to be here. So this is my second year coming to the world, and so this has been a great experience. And so I lead the university relations and K-12 programming as well as diversity recruiting partnerships at Rockwell Collins. I've been privileged to lead the K-12 space now for about a year and a half, and First is a large reason why we're so successful in that space. So I'm very excited to talk with you today around that.
I'm Jay Flores. I'm the Global STEM Ambassador at Rockwell Automation. We're headquartered in Milwaukee, but I live in Miami, so the weather change wasn't as big of a deal. But so I work on basically anything and everything we can do to help make STEM loud, and a lot of that is First. One of the big ways Rockwell is involved is on the playing field for FRC as well. So we automate the field and the scoring system every year, so I get to be kind of behind the scenes and learn a little bit about the game before everyone else does, which is fun.
It's a little tight in here, but I'm going to stand as well. Good morning. My name is Pamela Smith. I am with ABD. We're headquarters in Cary, North Carolina. That is the U.S. headquarters. And then, of course, our corporate headquarters is actually in Zurich. So I'm a pleasure to be here today. I'd like to share with you that I'm the talent leader for the Americas. That means I have talent acquisition. That also means that I have talent management. So we are always looking for individuals who are unique, who are inspiring, who are aggressive in how and what they present. And we're looking forward to just listening to and seeing all the projects here today.
My name is Sue Krause. I'm with Lockheed Martin. I'm the Intern Co-op Program Manager at Lockheed Martin. I work very closely with our K-12 lead. This is my first event. Very excited to be here. We have several First alumni in our Lockheed Martin ranks, and we'll meet with many of them today for the first time. So very much looking forward to it. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Courtney Locke. I work for Qualcomm. Many of you guys might know us as a sponsor. We're the company that puts the smart inside of your smartphone. We're headquartered in San Diego, California. It's not a bad place to be. And I'm the lead for our intern and new grad hiring. We hire over 500 interns each year, mostly to work in San Diego, but we have locations all across the U.S. In computer science, computer engineering, and electrical engineering. And we're excited to be here today.
Hi, I'm Amanda Pallage with NRG. We are headquartered in Princeton, New Jersey, although have a very large footprint here in Texas. Most of our customer base actually is here in Texas. And primarily the First program and why we're passionate about it is thinking about smart technology, so smart energy technology and a smart home. All of the devices that many of you carry today, those devices are starting to be what control our homes. So think of your lighting, your alarm system, putting your garage door up and down. So we're passionate about it on our retail side as well as our wholesale side from an engineering perspective. So thank you for inviting us, and we're happy to be here today.
Thank you all. So, who has questions for our panelists? It's not a time to be shy. Okay, I have, please.
For the representative from Lockheed Martin, what colleges do you usually take for internships?
For internships, we have 100 schools that we actively recruit at, but we look at colleges all across the United States. So if you want to talk afterwards, I can talk specifically about yours rather than list them all.
And other folks, can you talk to us a little bit about maybe specific schools that you prefer to recruit from or the way that you might do that?
Can everybody hear me okay? Usually I'm loud. So Rockwell Collins, Rockwell Automation, just so you know, there's different. Great friends, but different. actually have been talking with a lot of you when you stop by our booth, and I've heard a lot from interested in going to Embry-Riddle. That is one of our strategic partners. So we have 11 strategic partners, and we also go to diversity conferences as well. We hire about 80% of our students from our strategic partners. So we have a good list. One of the things that we look for from the universities is to ensure that we have great talent such as you that are coming out to meet our demand. So we hire, this summer we'll have just under 700 interns in the United States, and then we'll also have about 300 new grads. And so we definitely are out there, we're recruiting, and so if you're ever interested, we would, like same with Lockheed Martin, would definitely talk with you about the schools that you're looking at and how that would fit with what we're hiring as well.
Great.
We're very similar, and I'm sure a lot of companies have what they would call their key schools that they recruit at. But just general tips, if maybe your school isn't one of those, is some of the larger diversity or engineering conferences. You'll be able to reach companies that may not recruit at your school. And then also LinkedIn is a really good tool. Sometimes in search features, you can find out where some of the engineers from those companies are coming from. And vice versa, where a lot of the students from certain schools end up going, and try to understand how to best position yourself for where you want to be, kind of your dream career.
And so I'm going to speak on behalf of ABB. Certainly we have interested individuals who have engineering backgrounds as well, but we have finance as well, and other key management and advanced degree programs, because we are in electrification and robotics and motors and in smart grids and power grids. We're going to be looking for individuals that not only have that type of background, but also have the energy and passion to really demonstrate and be able to truly articulate what you do. So when we start to look for interns, we want those individuals who are very smart, who are very talented, but we want you to also demonstrate the passion of how you actually are connecting with each other and partnering and leading teams, as we know that you're doing here, of course, at First. So those are going to be some of the minimal things we're looking for. And just as he shared a minute ago, so what was your name?
Jay.
Jay referenced LinkedIn. Absolutely, if you haven't done that thus far, some of you are. Certainly, I know in high school, but it's never too early to do that as well. But certainly take the time and get out there and really network and see who those engineers are, leverage those partnerships and those relationships, find out what the energy and the things that are required to get into respective companies. But for us, we're certainly going to be looking for that passion and that energy and absolutely the desire to work with us.
How many of you have a LinkedIn account? Just curious. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Homework for everyone else.
Yes, absolutely, and that's a great point. So those of you who are either about to graduate from high school or already have, if you are or will become First alum, we have an exclusive group on LinkedIn just for First alumni where we share information about what's going on, job opportunities, how to get in touch with companies like this, so definitely take advantage of that. Another thing that someone mentioned here was leveraging your network. So do any of our panelists want to speak to other ways that you might leverage the networks that you build, either on LinkedIn or maybe an after-school robotics program that you participate in, how you might leverage those experiences that you have when you're starting to look for internship or job opportunities?
I would say don't be shy. Reach out to the individuals on those networks that are in the positions that you're interested in. Go to them if you're at a networking event. Go to your First alumni. If you see somebody who's here volunteering from a corporation or an industry that you're interested in, go up and introduce yourself. That's how mentorships are created. So definitely don't be shy. Advocate for yourself.
Well, if I might add to that, just from the standpoint of someone that was an engineering student that had to go out and network, though LinkedIn wasn't really something that was around when I was doing it, I still find that if someone were to contact me through LinkedIn, typically if I don't really know you, or if like the people, I'm not really in recruitment, my wife is though, and when she's looking for candidates, she goes out and does site visits and things to schools, and then we do outreach campaigns. And really it's the random interactions you have with people where you can demonstrate your abilities that get you above the noise. Because the noise is all these emails that come in from people, and if you post a lot of things on your social media flavor of whatever you want to do, you're not necessarily going to get noticed unless you can stick your head out of the crowd somehow. And I think one of the ways to do that is if you go to an outreach event. I'll give you an example. Occasionally, when an increment ends, an increment is when someone's on the space station, astronauts come down, and then they give a presentation of what they did. You could go to that event, and because you are who you are, which is a high school student and soon to be a college student that is actually actively participating in the community of learning, and you're demonstrating just from that you are a valuable person. And so if you go to these events and just stand up and ask the astronaut, hey, what's it like being up in space, and ask something that's relevant to them, you actually are standing up and making your presence known. But if you just think of a good question and go up there and ask it, and you'll find that people actually will respond. And after, you might actually end up finding that you'll be able to talk to people and be ready to give your contact to them. Because I think in those instances, if I were to meet someone like that and ask a couple of good questions, then afterwards, if you were to contact me over LinkedIn, I'd be like, sure, you'd be a great intern, and I'd feed you into whoever I could find. So it's physical interactions are not something you should ignore.
Great
I would
point.
also say to build your brand. So think of who you are and the few things that you're passionate about and brand yourself. So you see a lot of products out there from a marketing perspective that has branding. All of the companies have branding, but also to brand yourself. Be your authentic self. And companies are passionate about finding that uniqueness and what you can bring to the table and add that maybe a skill that not everyone else has, but something that's specialized for you that makes you stand out in the crowd.
I'd also like to add that you have a great network around you. All the students that are in this room, the mentors that you have on your team, they all work at companies and can share what their experiences were like. Your peers that are in this room are all going to be entering college and industry around the same time as you. So you can leverage that network to help figure out, if you get an interview with a big company, what questions might they ask? That Facebook page that Michelle mentioned is a great resource to connect with your peers to gather information that might be specific to helping you.
Please.
Whenever you guys, whenever we go into a company and we talk to recruiters or something like that, and we want to sell our first experience, what specifically are you guys looking to put a lot of weight on regarding to the first experience, what you've done in the first? What exactly do you want to see and hear about?
What I think is the most important is what you're able to demonstrate as you're on your team. It's not talking about what I did, but about what we did, and then what was your part in the we. So being able to talk, you don't have to win, you don't have to come back with anything more than just this experience in and of itself will differentiate you. Talking about the adversity that you had to overcome, how did you problem solve, how did you troubleshoot, and then coming back, there's so many attributes that you get from this program, and as long as you come in and you're able to demonstrate those, I think will kind of speak for itself.
Perhaps to add on to that also from a perspective of the difference that whatever project you've been working on, the difference it's going to make in society, the legacy, the footprint that's going to result as you've completed the project itself. Demonstrate how it's going to make a difference, the impact it has, and then certainly be ready to demonstrate that. As you said earlier, the whole team working the adversity, because there are challenges and there are a number of things that you perhaps are actually having to sacrifice by being here this entire week. Don't underestimate that either. Be ready to share how you're going to use this and leverage this. So back to your question earlier about what are those key things, the leadership aspect, also the adversity that you've already referenced, but also the footprint that you're going to leave as a result of participating in this type of project and experience. So those are some of the things we're going to look for and how you actually are leading those types of things.
And on a very practical level, I wouldn't just put FIRST as a membership. Put it under experience and tell the story of the projects that you've worked on so that you can demonstrate the tools that you've used and the outcomes and the experiences that you've had.
And for those of you who didn't raise your hand for the LinkedIn or wondering, like, well, what am I going to put on my LinkedIn? You have so much experience that you may or may not even know about from these several years within FIRST that is relevant work experience that should be in there. To go back to your question a little more, I think it depends on who you're talking to as well. So a Rockwell Automation who's been a strategic partner for a while is going to know what your experience is like, right? So then you might focus more on what you did in your community work, your leadership portions of it, versus someone who may not have had so much exposure to FIRST. So the tip I'll give you there is one of our taglines is listen, think, solve. And in an interview, people are asking you questions, and a lot of times you're just thinking about what's my answer to the question going to be. Really listen to the type of questions that they're asking. If they're asking you a lot of technical things, you're going to want to talk about how challenging your build season was and a very technical problem that you solve that you guys might have run into. If they're asking a lot more type leadership-based, behavioral-type questions, then you'll talk about core values. You'll talk about challenging times with your teams during that build season. So just make sure that you're also kind of listening for what they're looking for.
Like problem solving, too, I think. I remember one of the key things that I took away from my wife's latest experience with intern searches is that she looks for problem solving, conflict resolution. Some of the things that are happening when you're in front of someone that's looking to hire, it seems like what's going on in their work environment affects what they're listening for in the interview. And you can't know that. That's a black box. So prediction is not necessarily something you should worry about. But every workplace has conflicts. Every workplace has problems. Every workplace has tensions that people are trying to get around and make things work. If you're a leader, talk about leadership. If you are a problem solver, talk about problem solving. I did that in one of my interviews. And first, we had a cold solder joint, and the robot died. It was dead connection, no conductivity. I immediately raced into the pit with my soldering iron and fixed it, and well, I posed it as a disciplined manner. It might not go in your head, it might not feel like that, but you can spin this properly in an interview. Go out there and tell them that you went in there into the pit and you fixed that cold solder joint because first, you knew there was no conductivity. You diagnosed the problem and you went and solved it, and you did it without panicking, and you got the robot running. That's the story you got to tell. Tell a good story when people talk about that, because that will affect them, at least from my perspective. Granted, it's all dependent on who you're talking to, and you just got to gauge the room. But you have a lot of stories to tell. Just remember that.
A lot of your biggest headaches are going to be your best opportunities to talk about in an interview.
After this is all done and you're on your way home, what I recommend doing is reflecting a lot on this whole entire experience and develop your elevator pitch, if you will. What is your story? Don't walk out of this and just let it stop here. So then that way in the interview, it just rolls off your tongue. So when you're going home, just think about it, reflect on it, and put your story together. And so we talked who has a LinkedIn profile, but who has started their resume? Can you raise your hand? You need to get that started as soon as you can, and don't think and assume that you don't have anything to put on there. This is an incredible experience that could ultimately be better than a high school internship or be better than your freshman internship. So make sure that you articulate this effectively. And there are so many people who would be willing to help take a look at it, take a peek at it. As a recruiter, we do keyword searches, for example. So if I want to find somebody who has experience I need someone in this particular internship, I can type first in, and the student who has first resume will come to the top. The more that you have that articulated, the higher up your resume goes. And so think about what keywords that you're going to take away from this and put it on your resume to make sure that this experience helps differentiate you.
I'd like to maybe share one more thing around the whole aspect of reflecting. The recency effects will be most important for everyone. Often when you attend events like this, it's awesome, it's fantastic, you're energized, you walk away thinking you're going to do X, Y, Z. You get back and life happens. Life happens from school, peers, or for those who may be here working, life happens. So I'm going to strongly encourage you to, those connections that you make, reach in immediately when you leave here to start the dialogue, to continue the dialogue. Hey, remember we spoke about this. Why don't you just follow up? When's an opportunity perhaps to connect again with you? Make sure you don't hesitate and pause. You need to get that energy, sustain that energy, keep it in play, and make sure those contacts are aware of who you are. Back to the storylines, everything you've heard thus far is awesome, are awesome tips, but make sure you don't let it rest because the energy's there, keep it there, and continue with the momentum.
Great. We've got a question up front.
The particular skill set that we're looking for, so software engineering, computer engineering, so you can aspiring to be a software engineering student at an accredited institution, whatever it may be when you're in high school. So the curriculum that you're choosing to go into will be important. As you're talking about your different skills that you get, what equipment you use, what coding languages you used, what industry that you aspire to go in, so you'll have an objective at the top position that you are applying for, but be careful when you do that. I've received resumes that people want to work at Lockheed. Good, I hope you get that job. You should go apply to that one. So be careful when you try to make it specific to the job, but that will also help differentiate you, so just slow down when you're doing that. I would also say, I think that's probably about it. So any hardware, any software, any coding languages, these organizations that you're involved in, so we partner with a lot of student organizations. So if you're a part of IEEE or you're in NSBE Suite, SHIP, whatever it may be, make sure that you put those in there. If you had any type of leadership experience or you led an initiative, a team, if you were a captain, whatever it may be, I would recommend putting those on there as well.
And the skills you need will be more, they'll be more direct as you move up the line. So as a high school intern, they might be looking for a good student, in STEM, and great recommendations from your advisors or for your, from either your school or for the first program.
Pop quiz. How long do you think a recruiter will look at your resume for? 30 seconds? Less than that? 15? Can we go lower than 10? So I've seen some research that says it's like 7 seconds. And so at first I was like, no way. Like, I did not spend all this time on my resume for you to look at it for 7 seconds. But as I did some recruiting, I started to realize is you have like this little 7-second scan in which you create kind of your first impression of that person. And your first impression is going to put you on this scale of either, yeah, I think we're going to hire this person, or we're not. And that first impression is the biggest shift on that scale. Obviously, as you speak or you talk about your experiences, you can shift either positively or negatively. But that first impression is super important. So anything that you know that one of the companies is looking for, make sure that's very visible. Make sure it's very clear what kind of leadership and engineering experience you have. But really doing the research and understanding what your particular audience is looking for is important. And then also on the flip side, a piece of paper can only sell you so much. So those in-person opportunities that we talked about earlier are even more so important whenever you have a chance.
I'll just add one quick thing. When you do put your first experience on there, make sure you don't just list the word first.
Right.
Go into a little bit more detail. If we do a keyword search on just the word first, we're going to get thousands of resumes back. This is my first time presenting in a classroom, my first time doing this, and it's very different from your experience. So the more descriptors that you can use to talk about at what level you competed, how far you made it, that will really help us in finding you.
And it's your face-to-face interactions that set you apart, pull you out of that black hole of relying on the keywords to get you, in front of a recruiter or a hiring manager. So make sure, and there will definitely be more than 10 seconds being spent on your resume when you have someone face-to-face looking at your resume, talking to you, asking you questions, and being able to picture you in a position that they're looking to fill. So any type of face-to-face interaction is going to help you.
Can I interject one quick thing? Just from an experience of keywords in my career, at one point I was asked, I have a degree, I have an engineering degree. I'm working in an engineering job. I was actually asked, do you want to be a scientist or engineer? And I'm doing the same job. They asked me what they wanted my label to be. And so I chose engineering because it's what I was doing. But there's things like that, with robotics, I think for the leadership roles, the things I struggled with my resume initially were labels. Every different team has different ways of calling you something. You can be a captain, you can be a team lead, you can be a facility manager. There's all these things, these words that people put at you, but they're kind of just making them up. And the roles are real. I'm not saying that the roles are not real. It's just that the keywords might vary. And so if you sit there struggling with what you want to put in there in terms of leadership qualities or your organizational abilities or anything like that, just think about what you want that role to say, and maybe even try and put yourself in the position of a recruiter of what they're trying to read. And so don't sit there and put nothing though. Find something, talk to people around you, talk to your parents, talk to your teachers, talk to anyone that'll listen, and ask them, well, what do you think this role actually should be labeled as? Because it's not making something up. The role is real. It's just that the label sometimes can change. So just keep that in mind.
Great. We've got a question in the front row here.
When you're looking over resumes, is there any traits that you look for or favor, like good teamwork or creativity?
Well, you have to remember remember there are basic qualifications for each position. So those have to be met in order for us to be able to move anybody forward. So you want to look specifically at the job requisition and look what the basic qualifications are, or the must-haves. They might be called different things at different companies. But what do you need to have in order to be considered? Because we have to follow, equal employment opportunity guidelines. So we can't just, we meet you at an event at first, you're a great person, you're doing a lot of wonderful things, but if you don't have the skill sets that are listed on that particular job that you're applying to, it doesn't matter. I can't move you forward, on that particular rec. So make sure that you match that. And then on top of that, we're looking at your resumes through the eyes of the hiring manager. So we're trying to understand the hiring manager's needs, their culture, and say, oh, this person looks like they'd be a great fit. So some hiring managers might say, I want someone with a lot of leadership experience. Another hiring manager might say, I'm looking for somebody who just has a lot of hands-on experience. I want somebody who's been working on a team. So you try to keep all of those in mind as you're looking. It's individualized to some degree based on the business area, the manager who's hiring, et cetera.
I would also say to showcase your successes. So don't just say something in the sense of, I led a team. Show what you accomplished by leading that team. Sometimes, I don't want to say wordsmith, but fluff it up. It's very easy to say, this is a black tablecloth, but say what this black tablecloth is and the purpose that it serves. And that will help to set you apart from others having those descriptors in there.
And I would just keep in mind that the job that once you get to that company, a lot of what you're going to be doing, you're not going to be prepared for, you're not going to have taken a class on it. A lot of companies will develop tools or languages or technologies in-house that you're never going to find in a classroom. So I think adding that context and just having that descriptor of your experiences and how you approach problems and how you were able to figure things out in certain situations is really going to be key, because that gives us some indication that you'd be successful in our environment because you go to those resources, you ask those questions. So keep that in mind as well.
And as you've heard a number of tips and techniques thus far, I would also recommend having more than one resume. You can always adjust and reflect the needs and the requirements as you shared earlier, and you can tailor it accordingly. One of the things in common when you are perhaps a student that you're going to also ensure that you have is to show your community experience, anything that you've done out again that's other than just first, because absolutely this is paramount, but also we want to see how well-rounded you are, because quite often when we get individuals who are very unique, very skilled, and very focused in the engineering area, we want to make sure they're able to collaborate with others, demonstrate and share and work on teams. And when you're so focused and you don't demonstrate how perhaps you've done things outside in the community and volunteered, then there's a challenge there when you come in, because you want to focus on your projects, but then there's more in the workplace, politics, communications, different types of conflict that you may come into. We want to make sure you have that ability, so you should demonstrate those types of things you've done as well. So it's nothing wrong with developing one or two resumes and then tweaking them each time as you look at the experience and the requirements. So that's also perhaps another tip for you.
I actually often recommend to my students to keep a running record, so have a multi-page resume that you just keep on your computer, and then you can pull from that, so you have it at the ready, because you really have one page as your real estate to get the job done. I've known managers, if you're a high school or a college student and it's more than one page, they're not even going to look at it. They want one page, and you want to have the most important information on top.
Well, and something about that I want to interject from the tabletop comment was that for a position like in space station program right now, we're heavily documentation side where I am. And so though we do engineering and CAD modeling and everything, that's very important. But the blank I always had on my resume that I always didn't necessarily like, and I looking back probably didn't need it, was MS Office. And MS Office, pretty much everybody knows how to use Word, Excel. But there's portions of that actually are pretty interesting. You can use Visual Basic in there. You can do things outside of the box with these documentations. You can interface it with SharePoint. You can make documents that automatically generate themselves. If you know the tech, even better. But not many people do that anymore. It actually is not very relevant in People around me do want Visual Basic experience. And so if you see that you have an NMS and an Office blank in there, and you're thinking, I need to put some more relevant skills in here, and I don't know how you feel about this, but some people might actually, on one of those resumes, those moded resumes, would be put a Visual Basic experience of interfacing Word with a database and pulling in a table. Even if it's just a simple pull and generating a table, it's something you could learn off of YouTube in an hour. Most of you code better than I do probably, so it would take you less time. And you can put that on your resume, I think, and it would affect people like that I'm around that are hiring actively.
Although if the job description has Microsoft Word on it, make sure you put that too. That will be one keyword that jumps up.
And if you guys have any personal projects, definitely include those.
Yes.
They show us that you're curious and that you actually took action to figure something out, which is extremely important in what we do. So if I'm looking at your experiences on your resume and you have a personal project, that's actually where I'm going to start, because I want to know why, like what inspired you to want to take your toaster apart and try to figure out how to automate it so you could put it on an app and, you know, make your toast in the morning. It might sound silly, but that to me is fascinating and I want to know more. So
That's great.
think
I feel
about
the
what
same
you get
way.
really excited about, and that's what we want to talk about.
Great.
And one other thing, just back to your comment, those things that you are excited about, it's going to be very easy for you to write about those things. So stay there, you know, make sure you're actually demonstrating those aspects, those areas of interest. It's going to flow for you. So as you're developing your resume, make sure you maybe start, get running this as you referenced a minute ago, start with those things that you have the passion on and around. Get that out of the way, and then you can focus on the things that sometimes are a little bit challenging for you as you start to develop your resume. So get that out there first, and then it gives you the momentum, energy to then produce more when you start to develop the rest of the resume.
Please.
So I've seen a lot of different resume styles, like for the one page, there's been the one standards where it's like the blue font and then the line and then your education and yada, yada, yada. I've also seen some, they look like lemonade stand flyers with a little star thing on the side and boxes and multicolored text. So how would you say would be something that's eye-catching, appealing, but also not too ostentatious where you're looking at it and like, this is a little too over. What do you guys think is a happy medium?
I would say that most people don't, depending, if you're in the engineering technology world, I don't think what it looks like in the sense of having pictures and font colors and different styles, that doesn't really matter. It's the content. Now, it should look well put together. It should be correct. They're depending on, like, I met somebody who works in our Skunkworks division, and if he said when he looks at resumes, if he finds a comma out of place, or that resume goes in the trash, because the work that they do in his division, one tiny mistake could mean someone's life. So, you know, you want to make sure it's correct, you want to make sure it looks good, but as far as the fancy stuff, in my world, that doesn't matter.
And I would just say, as common as it sounds, to make sure you don't have misspelled words. Spell check doesn't always catch everything, so make sure the words that you have in there, you're using them in the proper tense as well. But sometimes that eye-catching creativeness, marketing is a big thing for us in market research and innovation. So sometimes that creativeness helps you stand out from the crowd. And I think one of the things you're going to need to do, of course, is do your research, because it depends upon the culture of the company. So as she's referenced a minute ago, you know, catchy eye color, bright colors may be appropriate for one company, but another company that may present themselves differently in the market, and they're very crisp, and just depends upon their culture. You're going to want to tailor it for that. So make sure you've done the research first, you know, go out there and ensure that you understand enough there, and then you can tailor it accordingly. But I can also assure you that clean, crisp resumes that are clear and easy to read will always still be a mainstay, because we get so much coming to us and so many words sometimes. When you're able to encapsulate it in something very clean and crisp, 1 or 2 pages really doesn't matter. Just make sure there's enough white space on it so that we can capture and key in on those areas, and especially those the key skills and capabilities that we're going to be searching for. That's great too, but do the research first with the company. See what they
like and often see coming into their shops when they're receiving applicants, and then tailor yourselves accordingly.
You're going to get different advice from every recruiter you talk to, every college you talk to. I think the key there is just make sure that it's easy for them to find the information that they're looking for so they can take you to the place that you're trying to go. So just having that down, because they're going to be looking at hundreds of resumes throughout the day. They've been standing at this career fair for hours. They had got like a little box lunch that wasn't very good. There's a lot of barriers before we even think about the barriers that you might have as challenges to getting in. So the easier you can make that experience for that person, and just have a conversation sometimes too. There's a lot of people that show up, here's my resume, my name is this, I'm from this school, and this is my major, and we're at like a mechanical engineering career fair at the same school that everyone's telling the same exact story, right? So just make your resume clear so you can get the right information right away, and then make sure your kind of conversation with the recruiter, who is also a real person, is good, and that's what will help you, get through the rest of the stuff that might be in the way.
I was gonna say the exact same thing. We're gonna tell you go do this, and then you're gonna go over here, and they're gonna say don't do that. So what you just have to figure out is what's gonna showcase your best self. I will recommend that you always put your GPA on there. Everyone in here is going to have a fabulous GPA. You're gonna want to highlight that, but let's just say on the flip side it's sliding or something. You'll always want to put it on there because we probably will assume it's worse than what it actually is. And so if you don't put it on there, it might make people assume. So always put your resume. But first and foremost, you have to apply to the job to be in consideration. So what would be great is, hi, I'm Callie, and I actually already applied to rec number da-da-da-da-da-da. Is there a hiring manager here for those particular positions that I can talk to? It shows you're interested, you went, you looked at our jobs, this is the ones that I was interested in, and this is why. Instead of, hi, what do you have for me? It'll show a little bit of initiative before you actually get to the booth. So then that way you're the mechanical engineer that came up and already applied to 5 positions as opposed to one that now where do we go and move your resume. So if you can do that, I think that would be great. And then to their point too, all the fanciness, a lot of times you're gonna have to just copy paste your resume inside of an applicant tracking system anyways, where all the fanciness just kind of goes away. So the best advice would be to put what is the most important at the top of your resume. And as he was saying that, the average recruiter looks only a couple seconds at a resume, you can Google a heat map, and it'll actually show you where the recruiter's eyes are moving and how long they stay on particular parts of the resume. So if you want to take a look at some of those, and then you can put the important stuff where recruiters' eyes naturally go, and you'll find that it goes into the education, the qualifying things for the position as they mentioned as well.
And make sure to save your resume as your name. I can't tell you how many, I have resume version 76 on my computer right now just from downloading so many files named resume. So just make sure you're saving it as yourself so that we can find you.
Great tip. I think we've got a question here. Yes, please.
Aside from jobs, does not find internships or an opportunity to do more about the environment, I guess, and being a high school student, I will be in a STEM field. I don't know if like information is something who might have been working on it for a long time. So even if I'm applying and I do more, I want to learn more about the communicational, I guess, aspect of it. Would I still be considered in the aspect, even though I don't know as much about the field, because I'm going to be there to learn more and see if I can go for them at that time.
Yeah, so what we talked about earlier, a lot of people said relevant work experience. So it doesn't have to be like engineering specific experience. So when I started with Rockwell, I was in sales, and a student came up to me. She didn't have any engineering internship experience, but she had worked at Starbucks. And she talked to me about how she handled difficult customers early in the morning before they had had their coffee, which sounded like a lot of my customers at the time. So I was like, you are perfect. Although she had 0 engineering experience. And so it's just trying to understand what experiences you've had in your life and which one of those apply best to some of the skill sets that company might be looking for, even if it's not specifically technical.
And maybe one of the other things you can do as well, all of you do Snapchat, you do Twitter, you do all the types of the social media, and most of, if not all the companies up here at the panel table will have information that's out there. Take a moment to kind of read through that and see what interests you, and when you're speaking to one of us or anyone else that
and generate the discussion and start the dialogue there. And then you'll find also perhaps it's an opportunity to introduce something that you've been doing personally or on the side that maybe, back to your point, is not relevant to technically, if you will, but it certainly is relevant because of how you interpersonally have addressed certain dynamics. And so if you can get that commonality and at least spark the discussion and demonstrate that you have an interest because you follow something in particular about the company, we'll also remember you from that perspective as well.
Great.
We do not, unfortunately, but we do hire at the freshman level. So when you are in your first semester or quarter of college, you can apply for the following summer, so the summer after you've completed your first year of school. And we look for talent all across the U.S. for our freshman program. We connect you on a team that has other freshman students as well, so you can have them there for camaraderie and mentorship. And we place you on the teams that are doing some cool, we try to tailor it to your skill set. So if you're strong in Python or Java or whatever it might be, we place you on that specific team so you can really have an impact with the project that you work on. So if you guys are interested in freshman internships, I'll just do a little plug. We did bring these cards. I just have one conveniently up here with me. And we have a specific referral code, firstrobotics@qualcomm.com, where you can get more information about our freshman program.
Great. And for other companies, do you have high school internships, or what is your process?
Booz Allen, we don't have a high school program that I've been told about, but they do have outreach programs throughout college that you can kind of touch with, like FIRST. And the way that like Run Station, at least, we look for juniors and seniors mainly in college level. But if you do touch with somebody, keep in touch with them and try and keep Booz Allen in mind, or keep the station program even in mind, because even the internships that are coming through this summer, all of them are coming from college level right now, but a lot of them actually came through networking events that they were able to keep in touch over time. So just because we're not taking high schoolers at station right now doesn't mean we can't work with the space station program. Just 3 years goes pretty fast. So.
And to add on that, before our other panelists, I believe we'll have folks from Booz Allen who, if you're interested specifically in them or some other companies, we'll have folks at the exits. You're welcome to share your information with them as you're leaving today.
We do have a high school internship program. It's at our corporate headquarters in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and we hire roughly 23 high school interns. It is during about 90 hours during the summertime, and we have a few that were during the school year, but it's primarily through a local community college partnership that we have that does outreach. And so what I would ask is go talk to your high school counselor and say, are there any companies or any organizations that I should partner with to try and get this high school internship? Because it usually high school internships, from what I've seen, is it's the company working with the program as opposed to going and trying to hire one at a time. So we do also in our Portland location, and now up in a New York area, we have a very, very small partnerships that we're trying to grow. But today all of ours are at the college, or primarily on the college level. If you have any college courses in high school, you would qualify for a college level internship. So and we do hire across the board. Because what we find is a lot of times you have incredible experience like this from high school that will make you more qualified than somebody who doesn't have this experience as a junior. So you just need to make sure you're applying to the recs, and then we just compare that applicant pool, and you very well could be the most qualified candidate. Now, being in high school, if you want to relocate or go to different places, I don't know if your parents would feel about that, but we have locations all across the United States and actually the world. So take a look at our career site, and actually, I'd be amiss if I didn't tell you, come talk to us at our booth. We do have a booth set up there where my team's there, and we have some engineers from our Houston facility that'll be there as well. But there's a QR code on one of our little pop-up thingies, and today you can go and just register inside of there just to leave some information for us, and then we'll keep communication with you saying, hey, have you enrolled in college yet? Where are you going? So instead of us being out in the school saying, hey, were you involved in FIRST, we can just talk to the people involved in FIRST and go to you. It's going to be a beautiful thing. So if you want to take the time, go and register in that link, and then that way we can just keep that communication going.
We do also have a high school internship program, and they're actually asking to grow it now, which is an exciting time. And I would love for that to be filled with a lot of first students. I didn't have the information in time for this week, but we'll be sharing it in Detroit. So if you guys want to follow me on social media, I'll share it there. It's at jflores, JAYFLORES 2032. I'll put some of the information out there next week in Detroit. But always keep a look on our early careers website as well. And if for whatever reason, your dream company isn't up here or doesn't have high school internships, make sure you're trying to find a way to get a company tour or interact with someone, because that will always be one step ahead of someone else.
Lockheed Martin does have limited high school internship programs. They are definitely by location. And with high schools that are local to the Lockheed Martin location, it is something we're trying to grow, and which is one of the reasons I'm here, to learn more about the FIRST program and where we have support at our different locations, and we would reach out to the high schools near those locations.
So we also have a very limited high school program. It is specific to some of our power plant locations. Some of those locations are pretty remote, so I'll be honest. The program is growing mostly right now in New York through a partnership with a local school there. And for our college level, we do take after you've completed your freshman year for our college level internships. And they're fleet-wide, coast to coast, either in our corporate offices or some of our power plant locations for engineering.
Great, and we have time for maybe one or two more questions. Please.
I would probably start by focusing on your technical skills. As you mentioned, those are going to be a lot of the basic qualifications that are going to get you into the door. And those are the things that we're going to be looking for on your resume. Do they have the skills needed to do this X, Y, and Z? I think throughout the interview process, some of those leadership skills, your communication skills are really going to be what helps sets you apart once you've gotten into the applicant pool for consideration. So I think while the soft skills are going to be what distinguishes you, those technical skills you want them to be your focus while you're in college.
Well, there's also a lot of student organizations where you can actually work on both. So thinking of being part of like a Formula SAE team where you're working on a car. If you're interested in working for Ford, you'll have that technical experience, and you could potentially be the president of that student org, working on both at the same time. So look for those opportunities.
I think you did say that you wanted to know how long you should wait, right? Is that what I heard a second ago in your question? Between the two, leadership and yeah. So you've heard both now. My feedback would be absolutely you're going to use it in conjunction. So proceed with the technical aspect already. Certainly highlight and showcase those, but don't allow the time. Don't wait. Go ahead and proceed with whatever you have. Highlighting and showcasing those strong points, and then the other aspects, whether it's through social organization, through any type of additional projects you may work on, that will come, but don't wait. Don't wait to see that, because otherwise you're going to lose the opportunity.
And the good news on your resume, the skills, they can take up a very small space because you can just list them really quickly in one or two lines. You don't have to add a lot to it. You don't have to tell us what your proficiency is on that. Just list it, and then you can use the bullet points to tell the story of your experience, your technical and your leadership experience.
Great.
Sacrifice academics.
Yeah.
And I will add, there's one particular leadership position on campus that I think is just genius. A lot of clubs or organizations will have a corporate liaison. So if any company wants to interact with you as a club, they will interact with the corporate liaison. So if you are like, oh man, networking, I'm not really wanting to put myself out there, this is your job. Like, you get to have contacts with every single employer that comes to campus, and you're their gateway to connecting with the rest of your club or organization. So you build a really strong relationship with the corporate liaisons, and oftentimes I can think of a handful of corporate liaisons that I've hired on my off the top of my head, because I have that strong relationship with them and I know about them personally and what they're passionate about. So definitely check out those positions when you get to campus.
Great.
The other thing to remember is we want you. We're all fighting for this. You know, happily and friendly so. But we want you, so keep that in mind. You know, we're trying to impress you as much as you're trying to impress us.
Absolutely.
And ABB has, perhaps one more comment, ABB has a program called the Ambassadors. So as we were talking about the corporate liaison, these individuals, we actually leverage intelligent students and college students like yourselves to support us in our annual customer world event, and we'll be having it, hosting it again next year in Houston, where we have individuals come in, you become, you're more or less tour guides for us, but what happens, it allows us to not only get exposure to you, we offer also some training to the students to actually join us for that event. Typically, it occurs during your spring break, so some of you have to give your spring break up. But what it does, it provides invaluable experience and exposure to our leadership. And we continue those relationships afterwards, which allows us also to become more of a conduit and direct access to us when it comes down to internships, full-time opportunities, and some of our leadership rotational programs as well. So we're looking forward to perhaps also sharing more about that as we perhaps connect over the next couple of days around our ambassadors program.
Great, thank you. I think we had one more question, maybe hiding back in here. Excellent, please, last question.
Okay, so what did you guys do, like when you were younger in high school? Like, what projects did you guys do? What made you guys, what networking did you guys do when you guys were in high school?
I worked on cars and computers.
I think you guys are all like way ahead of where I was at the high school level. I would just say, you know, I was involved with clubs and organizations and building up my interpersonal skills, how to make connections. I think what FIRST does is it provides this really cool ecosystem for you to learn so many different skill sets that are going to be valuable to you later in life.